Hey everyone, we have been talking on this show a lot about AI because it's kind of the thing that's happening all over the place. But it's a very future oriented topic, and there's a lot of ways that it can possibly impact WordPress and this space in general. And if we wanted to kind of like have a roadmap or be able to understand at all how AI is going to impact WordPress in general, there's one person I think that probably has the most vision for how that might be, and he is our guest today. This is WP Product Talk, a place where every week we bring you insights, product marketing, business management and growth, customer experience, product development, and more. It's your go-to podcast for WordPress product owners by WordPress product owners. And now, enjoy the show. Hey, everybody. I am Matt Cromwell from Stellar WP.
And I'm Zach Katz from Gravity Kit.
And today we have a very special guest with us today to talk about the future of AI and WordPress. Matt Mullenweg is here. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Howdy, everybody.
Howdy.
And for those who might not know who you are, which is not likely or possible on this show, I'd love to if you give a little bit of an introduction of who you are and what you do and all that.
Sure. My name is Matt Mullenweg. My blog is ma.tt. On socials, I'm usually Photomatt, Photomatt. And I started blogging a long time ago. That ended up winding to contributing to open source software called B2, which turned into WordPress, which turned into a whole wild ride that has been a real joy of my life to be on. And founded a company called Automattic and many products along the way. And just really a joy to be here with y'all today.
Yeah, and Matt, you yourself are a product owner. You have a lot of different products going on, and a lot of them are probably aligning around AI in many interesting ways. So thanks for coming on to talk about this with us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So let's jump in. First of all, for those watching live on YouTube, feel free to comment. We will be taking questions live. We might not be able to get to all of them, but please leave your comments and questions and we will try to address them. But Matt, let's jump in. And you talked during the WordCamp US Town Hall about AI, not only about WordPress and AI, but AI and in general. Can you give us a quick lay of the land in terms of what you think the lay of the land is for opportunities in AI and the risks that AI might have for the web and WordPress as we know it?
Well, as hackers, makers, we're always looking for the best new tools, right? So actually the blog post I'm working on today, I found some old stuff I used to Photoshop. And I remember like learning that first version of Photoshop and how hard it was and all the buttons and everything like that. And getting the software was expensive, right? Or you had to use something like a GIMP for an open source version or whatever it was. And today, there's models like Nano Banana you can talk to or type to and say, hey, put the clouds in the background or move this person over here or something like all of the things that used to be like some difficult and some impossible actually with previous tools are now radically accessible. And that's the weird thing about AI is that we have this new tool in our toolbox and some things it's incredibly good at and some things it's like unpredictably sometimes it's like incredible and sometimes it like totally messes up. And so this it's beautifully human at the end of the day. We've my whole life programming has been very deterministic, defined inputs and outputs. And now we've created this like kind of new tool that we can use and leverage, which is has its own quirks and personalities and ways that it works. And that's, to me, a really, really exciting time to be someone who's making things, building things.
Yeah, that's actually like the thing that I'm excited about too. And you have talked about specifically how this is a really exciting time in WordPress in general for builders and creators. And our audience are those builders and creators. They're like, give me a new tool and I'll run and I'll innovate. So what do you think plugin and theme owners should be doing right now to take advantage of this situation?
Well, I would say the number one thing people should be doing is trying to use the tools for their own personal productivity.
Mm,
So how can you incorporate these things in your life? And this is what I said what I meant when I said learn AI deeply a couple of years ago, 2022,
hmm
at the State of the Word. It's that kind of just like when new software comes out, Photoshop, Canva, new language, whatever. Like you kind of have to play with it and learn the contours of the tool and its strengths and weaknesses. And with AI, gosh, you probably have to devote a little more time because there's new stuff coming out every single week. It's kind of wild the progress and how fast things move. So
Totally.
um, there are, I would encourage everyone to first and foremost just look at things you could automate or things that are in your life that you could maybe use AI to enhance or
Yeah.
be a partner on, a co-pilot,
Yeah.
buddy
I
that's
really
there.
like I really like that overall because folks seem to be rushing to do a lot of like customer facing AI that kind of ends up being a little bit crappy. And but in terms of productivity, I've personally experienced it as highly helpful and productive. I wonder if you could speak to that a little bit too. Like, how are you using AI for your own productivity?
You know, it's hard to make predictions, and I hesitate to in this rapidly changing world. But it does feel like one of the things that makes AI most useful to you is context, right? How much
Mm,
context does it have about you? So, for an individual customer or user, their most useful AI tools will probably be the ones that have most context about them. And that starts to get more into the browser or the operating system layer,
hmm
or one of these frontier models like ChatGPT that you've been chatting with for 2 years, so it knows you really well, has the memory, it has the history, so it can kind of tailor itself to you. Um, Now, I think one of the kind of first wave of this is that we were all like, okay, ChatGPT is awesome. Let's now embed chatbots into our products as well, and that could be useful. And you know, the chat as an interface for things is um, is a UI paradigm that literally 700-800 million people are very familiar with now, and is far more functional than it was before. But there's also kind of this uncanny valley where it can kind of mess up and it's hard to undo, and like it's not necessarily the most best design for certain types of actions or certain types of things you want to do, right? So and something that only has the context embedded in a product. So pretend that you're like putting an AI chatbot inside your plugin, right? It doesn't know, the rest of my life. It doesn't know
hmm
all the websites I'm logged into. It doesn't know all the things on my computer. It doesn't know like all those sorts of things. So I think that within specific tools, I think that the it's great to do these experiments, and we had a great one that we demoed at WordCamp, and I think that might be something people start to expect. But I'm far more interested in like what are the sort of more like purpose-built agents or AI tools that can be embedded into um, user interfaces that can do something that feels a lot friendlier. So um, I'll just go back to image editing because I think
Yeah.
that's that very clearly in the past couple of weeks we've had like huge breakthroughs on, and has been a bugaboo, a very difficult thing for us to tackle inside of like WordPress, for example. So
Yeah.
we want to offer like cropping. We did some stuff with CSS where you can like do duotone and other sort of filters and things. Um, but for you know, many types of transformations that you might want to make for an image, like the tools that we're able to execute and embed inside of WordPress and inside of the browser are lacking.
hmm
And even if we had those tools, the amount of buttons and the fluency you would need to properly operate them is much more like very expert level, right? You have to be like
Yeah.
an expert in Photoshop or Canva or something like that. So now having an AI you can talk to, like you might talk to a designer or someone like that and say, here are the transformations I want to make to this thing. And it's able to execute its tools in a very fluent way. That feels like a real breakthrough. There's a few other areas where I feel like AI is it's kind of gone like best in the world of things. We almost haven't noticed like translation, right? Like
Hmm.
when we think how hard Apple just a few days ago announced like the AirPods thing, right? The real time translation. I haven't tried it out yet, but like, yeah, it's very clear that we're very close to that, and that things that were previously pretty difficult are going to become just radically more accessible to everyday people at essentially free, too cheap to meter cost.
Yeah.
So you've talked a lot about image editing and having a good sense of having AI have a sense of who you are and the work that you do. And for example, with image editing, you have, let's say, like a brand guideline for a blog, and you have a image look and feel, and that requires having a definition of that somewhere and have that saved somewhere on your site or maybe in a browser or something like that where it has a good storage. How are you thinking about data storage, and like where does all this information about you live? Does it live in WordPress? Does it live in a browser? Where does it live?
Yeah.
It's funny. That was one of the first questions I asked Felix after that chatbot demo. I was like, "Where are you
Hmm.
storing chats?" And I think he was putting it in user meta or something. But like, I was like, "Where is this going?" Like,
Because it's
um,
a lot of data. It's a lot of data that needs to be structured. It's a lot of data that needs to be reviewed and curated.
Mm.
I don't know yet.
Well, that's good. That's a relief for me, at least. Yeah.
Well, I do think that as product, you have a lot of product builders. One thing uh, that I think we can all try to build into these products is just a really easy undo, right? When you
Mhm.
think about it, that ability to undo something is so powerful. It's like such a great paradigm that removes the fear for someone when they're using a new technology, right? I was going
100%.
to do something that I can't like revert. And so, we've worked huge amounts on this in like, well, both Gutenberg and WordPress with revisions and also just like the undo levels in Gutenberg and everything like that. But like, as we have these tools that might do pretty radical transformations to your site or whatever, like what's the undo button? So I say that's something we need to keep in mind as well.
Yeah. I was really interested at your town hall. You had this focus at the WordCamp US town hall. You spent like a good like 3 or 4, 5 minutes on AI browsers, and you touched on it again. And to me, it just felt like that was a little bit of a Easter egg or a hint, a little bit of a weird callback. I was like, I wonder if Matt's thinking about this in terms of like Calypso days. Like a lot of folks don't remember Calypso, but it was like a desktop tool that you can build your WordPress website and ship it to WordPress.com. I always loved
Mhm.
that idea, and I love what's happening with WP Studio. I was like, are you trying a map of like an AI browser, playground based, create your WordPress website in a desktop environment, hit publish, and it's live? Like that would be kind of like this is the future kind of thinking. I don't know. I might be leading too much, but that you talking about AI browsers got me thinking in that way. I don't know.
Well, definitely one of the biggest breakthroughs in the WordPress ecosystem, which has happened, but we still, I think, haven't fully like taken advantage of all the things it provides, is this idea of like Playgrounds Studio,
Hmm. Hmm.
that you can boot up a container for WordPress with a database, with PHP, with a web server, with everything like that, that you used to have to like either go through a ton of steps to like download Docker or some sort of local thing or spin something up in the cloud, what was very expensive. You can do that in like 30 or 40 seconds inside a browser on a modern
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah.
So that sort of, instant virtual machine and the reproducibility and the sort of like ability to maintain state in that machine is like a radical new capability. Um, the things I am curious about it, one, can we make contribution a lot easier? Right
Mm.
now, go to like I had a contributor day at WordCamp US. Like, there's a lot of steps that you have to go jump through, and you have to get Docker and like sign up for an account with Docker and like, all these sorts of different things. And like, could we make that maybe even just a single download that
Yep.
gave you like a little environment, a little playground that had everything right there for you, kind of in a self-contained way, um, that gave you the ability to, contribute to WordPress, for example, or Gutenberg. This is tricky. There's some build steps and other things like some parts of modern web development are a little trickier than they used to be. But I think this is a tractable problem, you know, and uh, for comment, the reason I highlight it is it was kind of like my first like brain explode moment since ChatGPT, right? When I got very early access to that browser, and I was like, well, let's just go to like WP admin and ask it to do some stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, I think first I went to Gravatar, and I said like, hey, put the phonetic, pronunciation of my name, and it like somehow figured out all that weird international phonetic alphabet stuff, and and put my product, and it actually like saved it and published it. I was like, whoa, I didn't mean for you to do that. That's kind of funny. I was like, wait, and then I went to WordPress and started like uh, navigating Gutenberg and moving things around, moving blocks around, and doing all these types of pretty complex interactions. Again, and in the background, we've been spending, a year building customized bots to sort of interface with WordPress and doing things like MCP and other things to like have an AI bot sort of interface and modify your WordPress. And here was something essentially imitating what a human would do, like reading the screen, looking at it in a multimodal way, and then like taking actions like a human would.
Mm.
Um, and that felt like an incredible hack.
Mhm.
It reminded me of folks when, obviously we've had robotics for a long time in factories and the specialized robots that look like have arms and do things and build stuff. Um, but there's a big push around these sort of humanoid looking robots, the Optimus or Unitree or the other things that are happening. And I was like, well, why would it make something look like a human, right? Robots can have 8 arms. They can be an octopus. They could like, shouldn't we make them better? Have more capabilities. And someone explained to me that like, well, the world's UI is for humans. So when you think about every appliance, every door, everything in the world is built for our form factor, right?
Mhm.
If you're able to make an autonomous agent, a robot, which has our form factor and can use the world like we do, it instantly gets access. We don't have to rebuild the world to work for that. It's kind of like when you think of like railroads, right, are great, but you have to build the tracks first. Cars are better, right?
Yeah.
Cars can do a lot on roads or off roads, and then at the best, you maybe have things like uh, flying or drones or other things that can literally navigate 3D space without needing anything to be built for them ahead of time. And we're kind of in this weird space where on one hand, like we're doing incredible investments in MCP and APIs and other things to essentially like make rails for these robots or machines to use things more efficiently. And on the other end, the machines are saying like, hey, what if I just pretend to be a human?
Yeah.
And so if a human could use this, I
Just
can use
skip
it.
all those steps. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's
And that's
fascinating.
another thing where I said, like, this is great for usability testing actually, because,
Mm.
we haven't fully solved the can a human use this problem.
Right.
We still have lots of problems in WordPress and other products where like you put a natural intelligence, a very smart, high IQ human in front of this thing and they can't figure it out. So
Wow.
like, that's that's a version. If we make it better for that, it's going to help. And it also kind of, part of what I loved about Danny Sullivan's talk about like SEO versus GEO versus everything. And kind of like one of my big takeaways there is like, hey, there's all these things you can do the game, the algorithm, or build for the machine, build for Google. But Google's aim is to find the best answer or the best result for a human. So if you build the most valuable thing for a human, you will ultimately be aligned with where Google is going to end up or where Google's going to try to optimize for.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get why people criticize that, and it's true that it's possible to game these things in the meantime, but it really made me appreciate, like, Gutenberg has taken a couple years than it would otherwise because of the investments we've made in like accessibility and kind of making the framework really um, robust in a way that like many other builders do not. And now that's paying off, kind of like the old adage that like when you build it for accessibility, it's not just for people who might be disabled. You're also building for someone who might be holding a kid in one arm or
Yeah.
using a walker or something like that. Like all these things like start to open up use cases that you didn't imagine. Some of the investments we've made into accessibility are now paying off for these agents being able to navigate our interfaces and our things.
Yeah. Love it.
So how does this translate to WordPress when AI is capable of doing anything essentially that a human can do? It have like not general intelligence, but if it can browse a website, upload things, write articles, publish blog posts, like um, how does WordPress fit in with this? You've talked in the past about WordPress being the operating system of the web.
Mhm.
What is the role of WordPress in this AI future?
Well, that's interesting because WordPress is a tool.
Right.
Right? So I think the more interesting question is like, what's the role of WordPress builders? Or like,
Mm,
what's the role of the humans in this?
Yeah.
And
mm,
yeah, I blogged about this the other day. Like, I feel like taste and discernment is going to become ever more important.
Right, but if you're trained on taste and discernment, if the model is trained, like we humans are exposed to a lot of bad taste things, and so
mhm.
our context is polluted by bad Sunday mailer ads, right? We know what bad design looks like. We know what good design looks like. Design bots are trained on this stuff as well, and they're not influenced by as many diverse things, I guess, as we are. So like that is our benefit, but or they are, but they're not thinking about. Anyway, there's so much context in the world that surely AI can have better taste than most of us.
Um,
Jury's
well,
out on that one.
Not yet, maybe, but like if it's trained only on Johnny Ive and and
yeah.
and
Well, this is why I love like I'm a huge fan of like things like Midjourney. David Holtz is
Mm,
someone I look up to a lot in this space because he really is like we're trying to optimize the reward function of our AI for beauty.
right.
And so, oh, that's interesting. And how do you train things and other things for that? But you're right. Uh, there. So yes, and again, we're probably getting a little further out than it's like able to predict perfectly here.
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
of course.
So for today, I like to think much more like, well, you know, uh, how do you stand out when it's very easy to generate 10,000 blog posts and put them on your blog, but is that
Mhm.
actually valuable? You
Yeah.
know, and so like, what can you talk to about that's unique to your experience, or how are you creating things that maybe are like new to the world that haven't been published 1,000 times already? Because is again, there's so much of AIs are trained on things, but the fraction of human experience which is accessible to them is still a fraction of what we all experience
Yeah.
and we all have in our minds and our intelligence. So um, yeah, this is I think an area of great opportunity. It's I think why so many folks are locking in and like working really hard right now because
Yeah.
it does
Right.
feel like this is a particular window of opportunity to define. Um, to answer some of these questions, which aren't really certain yet, and which we probably can't fully answer without shipping and iterating, right? Like some of the stuff, like, gosh, your guess is as good as mine. Let's ship 10 versions of this and see which, five of them do okay and two of them do really well. And that's
Mm,
what we'll start to iterate on and really like see. And it's kind of beautiful that, like there's been, but pre-chat GBT, LLMs and other things and other chatbots were doing pretty interesting things. And they sort of found like just the sweet spots of like that reinforcement trading and the chat interface and everything on top of a base model that made it like sort of like hit a nerve with society. We're like, oh, this is something like a little bit different from all the bots I've used before, from
yeah.
Microsoft's bots or Eliza or whatever it was. But so it yeah, I think there is that, finding that sweet spot is something we're gonna have to work our way into.
Yeah. We got a couple good questions here. Well, this one's just an observation first. Stephanie Hudson, I think, really was impressed by your comment. The world's UI is built for our form factor. And that was a good one. That's a one we'll spread around to other places. It's really unique and perspective that I think is super helpful to help align around the idea that like, yeah, we don't operate as chatbots. We operate in this whole UI holistic experience of things. So thanks, Steph, for that comment. Andrew Palmer has a question that I think is relevant. He says, what aspects of AI commercialization interest you the most, particularly for like WooCommerce or personalized image generation, user funneling to specific products or services, and reducing churn?
Mm. in a WooCommerce context, I do think a lot about product catalogs and imagery and other things like that. Like, there's already great examples of this. Like, you visit the picture of the shirt, and there's AIs that can now put that shirt on a picture of you, so you like see what it looks like and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. And that is kind of like a new novel thing in shopping. I have no idea how that's going to like influence or become a common thing, but that's pretty neat. I also love that AIs are very much open web native. You know, right now all of our sites are getting hammered by like a million bots crawling us and everything like that, right? Um, and so I do love that. We had a. I always talk about this pendulum that swings between like centralization and decentralization, between like open and proprietary, and there was definitely a lot of market effects that I think brought us towards centralized marketplaces, including like eBay, Etsy, Amazon in the past. Um, and uh, as those marketplaces and aggregators amass power, they start to exert that on the individual vendors, right? Because their interest is in their profits, not necessarily like any individual publisher. So it starts to be a lot more competition. There's advertising things, merge and shrink, et cetera. And so AI now like putting people back towards a lot more of these independent publishers, independent stores, independent sites on the web, I think is a nice rebalance of power there, which I think could be very, very great for people to, just like social media, like still distribute to those things to get like extra distribution where it's appropriate for your business. But when you have a place where you can have a direct relationship with your customer, that is golden, right? When you can capture that email address, capture that phone number, have that relationship, provide something that's a little bit differentiated from like the generic, like, big box store or Amazon experience, that can be pretty special.
I like that. Another thing you highlighted on your town hall was telex, which that was a fun surprise. We actually have a short video here from James Kemp that is showcasing a little bit of what can happen there. It's something that he told us is really experimental. I don't know if you know what I'm going to show, but let's see
I think
it.
this is core AI respective, not necessarily telex.
Oh, not telex. That's right. That's right. Sorry. Yeah. So we'll have to circle back to telex. But this one is actually, WooCommerce, Core AI, and that command palette thing. So hold on. Let's bring that up. And, it didn't come up.
All right. Well, here we go. There we go. So we have James Kemp, who's giving us a nice demo of WooCommerce command palette integrations, and we're jumping to the meaty part. So here we go.
In the code. Another one we can look at is getting an order summary. I don't have any orders on this site, but you can see again the response there. This one's really cool, the stock report. This one's a bit more of a multi-layered ability. So we're using an ability that gets the stock report, which just fetches all of the products, gets their current stock amount, the stock status, and also the value, which is the cost of goods multiplied by the amount of stock. So you can see as a store owner how much stock you have, on hold. And again, that's the execution of the ability there. And the nested version of this is that we can go through and update the stock, and then the stock update is using another ability, which is WooCommerce update product stock. Obviously, it's sending its input parameters there, which is the product ID and the stock quantity. And then the response is coming back. And within the response, I've also added the total.
Oh, I don't know where Cromwell went, but that's a good example of AI interfacing with the data of a website. And it's really interesting for me. I'm seeing that, I'm thinking, okay, well, how does that interface with somebody who's in their store? Let's say they have a physical store with a WooCommerce installation, and they can just say to their virtual assistant, we just sold something, or obviously it could integrate with a point of sale system. or like have a camera that they're wearing in their stock room
Mm.
and just automatically see what's available. And like there's so many, when you expose all this, these data structures, anything becomes possible. And it's really exciting to have this coming in WordPress 6.9. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I think, one cool thing about that is the abilities API, I do feel like is a very important primitive that'll be part of WordPress, for many decades to come. And it doesn't rely on AI, right? So like
Right.
it does also expose things in command palette and other things that allow us to like take a customer need, like what's something that people are doing repetitively that takes up a lot of their time, and how can we streamline that? How can we make it fewer clicks? How can we make it faster? How can we automate it?
So what are some of the things that I'm wondering from an organizational standpoint, you've got a lot to manage. And I know that we're a 6-person team at Gravity Kit, and I am trying to wrangle all the different parts of the business and have it exposed to AI in a way that helps optimize my time and helps improve our efficiencies. What are some of the ways that Automattic is using AI? Can you share specifics that have really like unlocked productivity or creativity in a way that you were surprised by and excited by?
Yeah, again, I'll go to the things that are like clearly way, way better. Um, Definitely, I would say, people proofreading or translating their output, you know, in
Yeah.
a million contexts. That might be support, it might be in communicating with colleagues, et cetera. That AI editor, AI assistant is like pretty darn good right now. Um, I would say that engineers, with a human in the loop, having AI assist them, automate things, check things, write tests, expand code, like that has definitely had an impact as well. And we're seeing um, in spots, but like some people like, accomplish things in hours that maybe previously would have taken them days, or,
Yeah.
be really fun. And it doesn't always work. So I'm not I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish about this and like pretend that like, oh, you just like put some agents and all of a sudden your business is transformed. You don't need people anymore. Like, no, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We might be, and you can kind of like squint and see how we might end up there. Um, but again, I love that. Something I think it was Heaton Shaw tweeted the other day. He's like, if you suck at remote work, you're going to be suck at managing AI. Some of the
That's
things
true.
around like asynchronous communication, setting up clear tasks, like all these sorts of things, like these skills that you might develop, and that we've developed as a distributed company, um, might be useful for managing some of these agents in the future. Um, Inside Automattic as well, we have a very strong culture of, we basically haven't used email for like 20 years because we use internal blogging. We have internal WordPresses using a theme called P2, which like is kind of like a theme that's built for like real-time collaboration and project management and things like that. And so now having like 20 years of those archives, you can imagine like how valuable.
So how are you taking, so we have like Slack channels, right, internally at Gravity Kit, and we have long otter transcriptions from years of meetings. And how are you collecting that and making that actionable in a way that isn't garbage in, garbage out when it comes to the amount of noise that is accumulated?
I would say there's not something that I can like fully recommend right now.
Uh-huh.
Like our search is getting better, other things. Um, Summarization is pretty good. Like that sort of stuff is great. Um, but yeah, I don't think we have this like magic thing. There's stuff launching every day though. I just saw one yesterday called Co-Founder, and it's like I guess something that like reads all your Slacks, read all your emails, and like is able to put that in just like humans. These AIs can't keep too much in their brain at once,
Right.
right? So this context engineering, putting the appropriate things in front of them that they're using to make a decision is important. And like you said, like maybe reading, a track ticket or a GitHub ticket from 20 years ago is not the most relevant thing to answering a question about a bug today,
Right.
right?
Though it
Sometimes
might
it
be.
might be. And
Yeah.
so it's going to be very important, just like put the right things in front of these tools so that they're able to like not get overwhelmed. You
Yeah.
kind of know, like it seems like you're very familiar with the shortcomings of this as well.
Yeah, and I'm at an organizational level. I'm trying to embed and create embeddings for everything, and cross tag things and make sure that everything's organized systematically, so that, oh, okay, this UI is related to this other product that we have, which is related to this WordPress core feature, which is related to a Gravity Forms feature, and connecting all those dots in the structure of the data is something that I feel is a real shortcoming and requires like a knowledge graph that doesn't yet exist. And that's where it comes back to the question of, okay, where does WordPress come into this with the data structures of the web? Like, how does WordPress describe what we're trying to get at when it comes to track? Like, sure, we can MCP that, but that requires the track to have also ingested and figured out what is important. Like, is WordPress a good central store for this stuff? Or is it a distributed, like, connected
Yeah.
future, or for WordPress?
Oh, it's definitely going to be distributed, right?
Uh-huh.
So again, there will be different products and databases and other things that lots of things live in, and you'll want to be able to call out to them or aggregate them as needed.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll see.
What are you,
Yeah,
and
one of the tools, we have a cool tool inside Automattic called MGS. I think it stands for Matt's Global Search, because it's one of the things I built a long time ago, which was like a search engine that essentially looks across like IRC, Slack, code, our internal stat system, all of our internal blogs, and like does a global search across all of them. And that sort of thing can be really, really useful.
yeah, and that's what I'm trying to build as well. I'm calling it MonoKit. Yeah, it's a mono repo for the whole org, but it's hard to even conceptualize.
Well, and it's good also, like, let's not build these things for their own sake, but have a problem you're trying to solve that you
Right.
can measure the effectiveness of this solution versus other things that exist in the marketplace or that you could do to solving that problem. So if you root it always in that like problem or customer need, I think that's the best way to answer these like kind of broader questions, because then you're not just trying to predict the future in like a generic way, but you're really saying like, okay, what's a specific thing, and we can kind of measure like whether we are solving that problem or not.
Right. And is there a specific thing that you've solved with Automattic? Like, you've talked about translations and stuff, but like, what else? What else have you like really just automated or made super better?
Oh man, it's funny because it's kind of it's like little improvements across everything.
Uh-huh.
It's actually funny in WordPress we've had like a very machine learning thing built into almost every WordPress for a while, which was Akismet. And obviously Akismet, identifying spam now has like a new array of tools and things available to it that weren't there when I first wrote it 20 years ago. So like there's other things that like, it's like lots of little improvements every single place.
Mm-hmm.
Is there already AI working in the background of Akismet today?
Oh,
Is that what you're saying? For a while. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
this is
definitely
why
not.
I've always been so fascinated with this space, and I've tracked it pretty closely for a long time. Is that it's always been really, really fascinating to me, like how you can sort of have like learning algorithms. How does a machine get better over time? How does it self-improve? How does like more data make it better? And that's very much at the root of why Akismet's had like 4 or 5 nines of accuracy for a very long time.
That's awesome.
And where is the moat? Like, for our customer, or for our listeners rather, who are product owners, there's a lot that AI can and will automate out of existence. So, like, Akismet is nice because it's a service that you call out to. When our listeners are considering what they should be building and can be building, what do you feel is the most protected area of interest that they could be exploring?
I'm really doubling down on like really strong customer relationships.
Mhm.
And what
And
does that look like?
what does that look like?
Yeah, when it comes to like
It
a
looks
world
like
of AI,
like churn, and it looks like, talking to people. It looks like support, and it looks like, outreach and understanding people's problems, and like, uh, and that's human to human connection. The more of those that you can have, that feels like a moat, because there will be brand loyalty. There's a stickiness to that, right?
Mhm.
That and part of maintaining a subscriber over time is how are you increasing the value of what you're providing them? Especially if you want to hopefully like raise prices over time, right? Keep up with inflation and other things. So, when you have that renewal, which is going from like $100 a year to like $110 a year, like, do they feel like that you're still providing a vast amount of value over what you're charging? And so, yeah, doubling down on those customer relationships, and really knowing and understanding your customers, I think is not going out of style anytime soon, and a huge moat.
I love that. And actually, I've said to a couple different product folks that I see a lot more potential with AI in the admin side of things rather than the front-facing side of things. Just in terms of like being able to provide business owners a lot more insights, like you're saying, being able to help folks do support a lot better. That's something I experiment with all the time. I think there's a lot of value there in terms of, when you ask questions about big data, how can we deal with those things? The customer side, front end of the website isn't as concerned with all the big data things. They just want like magic at their fingertips, but on the admin side, empowering store owners to know their customers better, that's really good magic. That's lots of potential. I love that insight.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing is trying to connect the dots with our Help Scout database and our email newsletter database and our WordPress installation for EDD, which is how we distribute our plugins, so that when I have a call with a customer, like I make it available to have a consultation call, I can easily query and have AI write up a summary of what I need to know about the call that's coming up with the exact data that's coming, like that's being present, like that customer has shared with us about themselves. So
That's awesome.
That's an
Right?
example of,
That's a great example of it. And yeah, it'd be very interesting to see how CRMs like Salesforce, HubSpot,
right.
And other like support tools, how that evolves in the future.
We're getting ready to move away from our newsletter because our provider Drip, they don't have good APIs and they don't have a way for enough exposed to make it actionable in a way that is more relevant now than ever with the AI revolution.
Interesting. I hope Drip folks are listening.
Yeah.
This is actually one reason I'm bullish on WordPress in the AI era is that WordPress is probably the most radically open place you could like put stuff into and get it out of, right? There's so many different APIs, there's ways you can access it. And of course it's open source. So like at the end of the day, you can open up the hood and modify it. And so proprietary tools that don't keep up with the accessibility and sort of like data liberation that we're talking about. And that's why data liberation is also something I want us to get a lot better at, is how can we bring data from like locked up tools or other things into WordPress, because once it's in the WordPress, it's now yours forever. It's now, really in a place that like truly belongs to you, both from like a code point of view, a freedom point of view, a license point of view, and like a data accessibility point of view.
Love it. I dropped there for a minute. Did you all talk about Telex? I want to make sure we talked about Telex.
Yeah.
Okay, Telex. Telex was super cool. It was great to see this idea. And as soon as, like, while you were talking about it at the town hall, I jumped right on there. And I had built a little AI tool that does like click a button and it gives you a TLDR of the article that you're reading. And I was like, can Telex build me that block? And it did a pretty darn good job right out of the box. And I've seen several different folks showing, like Jamie Marsland just did something where you can scroll and it will progress a video while you're scrolling and things like that. Like, where do you see stuff like that go? Like, I think there's product folks out there that are like, there's a million different, not a million, there's several thousands of plugins on the directory right now that are like 3 files maximum, or there's, there was a big push for a long time for these single block plugins, and there's a single block library, and those have a lot of value. But with something like Telex, it's almost like are those going to go away, Matt? What do you think? Like, instead of looking for those types of simple functionality plugins, we're just going to Telex our way into new blocks.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, Telex I really like it because it also like builds on things we've been investing in for a long time. Like one of the great things about Gutenberg is that it can sort of translate modifying sort of a structured part of the content into also user interface, right? Which renders in a certain way or has certain controls that make sense and are intuitive to like someone editing the content. They can see how it fits with the rest of their things in their post or page or their site. So yeah, but fundamentally, if you were to simplify it, it's kind of like a fast plugin builder, right? And that's what's neat about it, is it's Telex is, like we said, an experiment. And it gives you a zip file you can upload to any WordPress in the world. It can be on .com, it can be on Bluehost, it can be wherever. So, but you get kind of back to the fundamental software problem, which I think is still the great unsolved problem of these things. So 90% of the lifetime cost of software is not in the initial building of it, but in the maintenance and the iteration. Maybe more actually over the terminal thing. We also have, I will describe a general problem in WordPress where how does a user know which thing to choose to solve their problem, right? Almost anything you search for in the plugin directory, there might be dozens of plugins that do it. And they're trying to sift through like ratings, descriptions, other quality indicators to know like what solves their problem or not. And then we have kind of like a sub problem of that, which is like the commercialization or non-commercialization of certain of these solutions, right? So fundamentally, if you look at like what at least WordPress is betting on, or why WordPress exists, is that like let's take a set of problems and put that almost like in a DMZ that we're not going to commercialize and try to promote collaboration where we work together to solve these and make it better and iterate on it, right? It's very easy to build a CMS. Right? It's a CRUD thing, right? It's like the Rails 5-minute demo, whatever, is like a blogging system. But like, what's the reason we use WordPress? Well, we start to get to those edge cases, those different APIs, different things you kind of can iterate and say, here's a tool that you can use. So the tool use of like, sorry, I'm going to bring this all back.
Okay. I'm hanging in there.
There's you can have Telex make a slider, right? And actually that might be nice because someone just might need a very, very simple slider and it might do everything they need. There are also awesome slider plugins and slider businesses, right? That actually charge money and like provide like many dollars of value per year that people are willing to pay for like a really advanced slider. So in that continuum of software, I think there's going to be multiple solutions. There'll be kind of like the maybe one-off that is just fine for the purpose that you build on the fly. There's going to be something which I hope is in between, which is maybe that runoff as the starter, but then we have like a great way for like a community to come together and like 3 devs who have done like that simple slider thing come together and say like, hey, let's work together on this. It's not dissimilar to how WordPress started. B2 had many forks. And I went to some of the other forks of B2 and said, hey, instead of making like a bunch of different forks of B2, let's work together on one of them and that'll be better, right? And users, that'll be better for users too, because they don't have to be like, oh, do I want B2++ or B2 Evolution or WordPress or like, just come to one. And it's open source and so it belongs to all of us. And then finally, like, where are there commercial opportunities there? Which is a tough problem to figure out, but sort of at the root of like product development or capitalism.
Absolutely.
And Ian Misler asks, what does WordPress do to close the customer relationship gap on a site built with AI created blocks and plugins? Which is a relevant question. Like how I see the singularity coming and when we're nearer to the like general intelligence side of things, but where there's an AI company that builds and distributes AI plugins and automatically fixes bugs using AI and provides AI customer support. I see that coming eventually. In the meantime, like, so they have a block that breaks now. What next? Like how does WordPress scale to support that when everybody's breaking their own code?
Yeah. When something breaks, what's next? Well, I would say that if the AI is able to like debug and fix that, that's amazing, right? Because it's instantly available faster. But we've probably all been, I mean, by the way, this is not new. This goes back decades, where like you're stuck with the bot or the phone tree. And you're like, please speak to human, speak to human, like 000. What's the way to like get me to someone who can actually
Yeah.
understand me? And so um, there's still that, again, uncanny valley where sometimes if they're able to understand your problem and address it using their capabilities, it can be super magical. But when they screw up, man, it's frustrating. And you're just like, gosh, can I just talk to someone who understands? And again, by the way, even when there's human support, there's many examples of like, I'm talking to a support agent who just doesn't know what's going
And is
on.
that a hosting?
Your manager. Let me escalate.
Yeah,
Let me
is that something that a
escalate.
host
It's
will,
really just
like,
the fact that people need to be like understood and
Yeah.
addressed.
who will be on the hook for this? Like,
Yeah.
is it eventually the host? Is it like when you have AI building a website, publishing it on a hosting platform, regardless of the host? Like, is it then going to fall on these distributors of the code, like to the world, which is the hosting platform at the moment? Like,
I mean, the free market
Yeah.
is going to
Yeah.
figure that out. You look at how it exists today, like what host support has changed
Yeah.
over time. And actually a big thing for WordPress's success is like the work. I did a ton of work like 15 years ago, like saying like, because before WordPress was just one of like 30 things they would install in cPanel, whatever, and they don't provide any support for it. And I started going to all the hosts and being like, hey, let's start going to all your 2,000 phone agents and giving them like a WordPress 101. Because this is like now the operating system for your website. It's more than half of the installs that are happening or half of your new sites or whatever are powered by this. And so like, our support forums can't handle all these people. And by the way, they're paying you, they're not paying us. So like, and it's not that hard to learn. So if we can start to get some basic training, and hosts started to support more than they used to, where before you'd call and like, if you needed like your email fixed, they would do it. But if you started to say like an application on top of it, they're like, sorry, go to that application provider. But also because they installed the application for you for free and you didn't pay anyone for it. So it's kind of like, I do feel ultimately like some of the responsibility pays on like, who are you paying?
Yep.
That's who ultimately has, I think, some of the most responsibility for that customer relationship, because they've gotten you to like open up your credit card and give them something. So what value are they providing? There's always going to be a threshold where like, plugins provide support, et cetera. But at some point you might say, hey, you really need to hire a developer. Or this is kind of beyond what we're able to offer for $100 a year. You need probably like 10 hours of support from someone that costs $150 an hour. So like, there's always going to be a way to pass off or escalate depending on the needs or the uniqueness of the problem.
Now we got 2 last questions for you. First one is, I just want to see, what are we missing? Like, we asked a lot of questions that are top of our mind about AI and WordPress, and trying to read the tea leaves as we see them from the outside looking in. But what did we not ask? What's on your mind that you're really excited about that that we haven't covered?
Something definitely on my mind that we haven't talked about, which is relevant to product talk, is like the importance of design, usability, testing, understanding your customers, and all of this. I do feel like that's a place where the entire WordPress ecosystem can up our game a bit, is really being thoughtful and crafting these user experiences that, make people feel good, aren't challenging or confusing. So that's something both for core WordPress and WooCommerce and everything I work on. I like to say I'm the unhappiest user of all our products. Like there's a lot we can do to improve, but I think it's also something that just every engineer, every marketer, every business owner, everything can start to improve their own skills and taste and discernment around this. In addition to like, let's make sure that we're hiring the best professionals, that are designers or UX researchers or other things. Like let's do all of this to up our game.
Love it. Last one. We wrap up every single show asking for best advice. We go around the circle, and what is your best advice for anyone thinking about their WordPress product business and what we've discussed here today? Like, you're at a WordCamp, someone's like, Matt, I heard all about AI. What's your best advice for me? in a nutshell, what should the audience take away from this conversation?
I said it earlier, but I get so jazzed by talking with customers. And it always like really sparks my, I was in Houston, last week and met up with a VIP customer. That's a large energy company, like $100 billion energy company or whatever like that. That also I've been a customer of since I was a kid, which is neat. So that was kind of fun. But then like just hearing what they're tackling in their business and how that works, and their sort of customer model where there's like franchisees that own the gas stations, like all these sorts of different things, and like just kind of sparked my mind. I'm like, okay, like what's their intranet look like? Could P2 help them? How are the websites for all these different businesses that are owned by lots of different people being built? Are the brand guidelines like, and then what are their customers, ultimately looking for? How do they decide to stop at this gas station versus another one? And so there's a million niches out there. And one of my favorite things about WordCamps is meeting someone who's built like a WordPress business that goes really deep around a niche I hadn't thought of. There's obvious ones like education or dentist or real estate or stuff like that. But then sometimes you get like some pretty niche ones, like what I come across the other day. Storage racks. So I guess warehouses have like shelving systems essentially. And there's like a whole industry around like different types of shelving systems and like how like certain ones can support certain weights or support different accessibility. And like, that's a whole world. So I love when entrepreneurs like go into an area, shipping, storage containers, whatever it is that like might be like, part of this like hidden thing that like makes the world work, and like sort of really deeply understand what's a problem there and how we can apply technology to like, make their lives a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient. And that's kind of like the engine of prosperity and abundance and progress, which has allowed us all to like experience so much better lives than we would have 20, 50 years ago. Like there's no time in history I would rather be alive than today. When you think of what we take for granted, medical care, antibiotics, broadband, cell phones, all these things that like, 100 years ago, like the richest person in the world, or the most powerful king didn't have access to. And now it's accessible to all of us. That's really powerful. And that when I think of like democratizing as like a verb, technology, and part of our mission around democratizing publishing, it really is around how do we take these things that were difficult, expensive or inaccessible, and make them available radically to a lot of people. And then who knows what happens after that, but it's going to surprise and delight us and probably be some things we didn't expect, and hopefully move humanity forward in a way that then allows like, future things to be built on top of.
Love it.
Yeah. Matt, we lied. Actually, there's one more question. I know you're a big reader. What are you currently reading?
Oh, I'm reading a lot, but I like to move between books. One I think is relevant for this crew is Creativity Inc. Ed Catmull from Pixar, who worked closely with Steve Jobs and other things. Like it's a fun book. So
that's a good one. Nice. Cool.
And, okay, well, my best advice is if you haven't used an MCP, if you don't even know what that is, fine. Download Claude. Download some Claude is the one I would recommend using for this, and install any MCP server in it. It might take you chatting with Claude to figure out how to do it. That's fine. I tell Claude to install MCP servers on Claude. It's okay. Just ask it what to do, and it will work for you. Just set up any MCP server to any service as a starting point. Just do that, and you'll be better off than you were before you did in terms of the AI conversation, if you haven't done that yet.
That's a good one. Interesting. My best advice, honestly, is, and I talk to a lot of product folks all the time, and honestly, sometimes they take a lot of the Automattic products for granted and kind of just like skim and don't really look really carefully and closely. I have been looking a lot more closely, and I think folks need to do that. They need to check out Telex. I think Telex is really interesting. Everybody needs to check out WP Studio. I find it really fascinating and a really great product. It's way faster locally than anything else I've tried before, and it's been a great upgrade. I see Automattic doing a lot in terms of Jetpack. Jetpack is really interesting at the moment. There's interesting moves there. All this stuff, honestly, for the product folks who kind of are always looking for the new sexy or whatnot, they don't look at Automattic all that much, and I think that that's a disservice. They need to take a look at what you all are doing, because I do see a ton of really interesting, and of course, everything James LePage is doing with the core AI team, it's incredible, and the pace that they're running at is really amazing. So my advice, folks, is dig in to what's happening around the WordPress project as a whole, not just in your little neighborhood or niche of the space.
Well, Matt, that is incredibly kind. I really appreciate you saying that. And I'll add on, like James is a great example. Like when you spend money with companies like Automattic that are really active in the WordPress community as well, we then funnel a lot back of that into things that then don't belong just to us, but like belong to all of us that are community services. So like that sort of Fire for the Future idea, we're probably way above five, actually, if you count everything. But like it's yeah. So that's another reason to vote with your wallet for companies that are supportive.
Absolutely. Nice. Well, that's a wrap, Matt. Thank you so much for joining us again. And we hope to have you as
Been a pleasure.
often as you're willing to be here. But where can people find you online?
My blog is ma.tt. I've actually, like, since WordCamp, been really inspired to just be blogging every day. So that's been kind of fun for me. Like, just like, I think before I got in a mindset where like a blog had to be like a long essay or a huge thing. And I'm just starting to like share links, share interesting things. So check out ma.td first and foremost. But I'm on X, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Blue Sky, like all these sorts of things. The ones I use probably most actively would be my blog and then Twitter. So those two. And I'm Photomat on Twitter, PHOTOMATT.
Nice.
Well, Matt, thank you again for joining us. And for y'all listening or watching, if you're enjoying our shows, please do us a favor and hit like, subscribe, share it with your friends, reference it in your newsletter. And don't forget to tune in again next week.